Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm proud of you for making this step towards working towards managing your anxiety a little bit better. I'm assuming that if you're here, you have experienced some symptoms that you'd like a little bit of guidance with. So with that being said, anxiety is a normal response, but what isn't normal is when it comes in the way of you being able to do something that you need to do. So that's where I'm here to help, and many other resources as well. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be teaching you a tool grounded in cognitive behavioral therapy that you can practice anywhere, anytime, and give it a shot. So your anxiety is your anxiety, your experience is your experience, so this tool may work for you, may not, but what do you have to lose? So with that being said, cognitive behavioral therapy, what is it? Basically cognitive behavioral. So there's a big focus on the acknowledgement of how thoughts and behaviors are interlinked and how one informs the other. And basically if you target one area, it'll influence the other. And moods and physical responses factor in there as well. And so by making a change in one of these areas, it will spread throughout. So that's what we're going to try to do here, is focus on that behavioral and thought piece. Mostly this tool will be tailored towards behaviors, but we'll be touching a little bit on thought processes as well. But keeping in mind that a lot of anxiety is to do with those automatic things that you've learned to tell yourself. So maybe like, I can't do this, I'm scared, or chronically like, I can't do presentations because I'm terrible at it, it's so scary. So with that being said, for the purpose of making this video practical, I've decided to narrow it down to one specific example. So that's going to be an example that causes anxiety response in many people, and that's public speaking. So keeping that in mind, I will explain how you can generalize the skill to other instances, but that's what we're going to walk through. So with this video, my goal is to empower you, and by empowering you, part of that process is kind of explaining how things work. So bear with me. I know you want the tool, you want it now, and but just that understanding is important to basically your belief that this will help. So yeah, so with behaviors, which is where I said we're going to be targeting with this, behaviors that are characteristic of anxiety are avoidance and safety behaviors. So avoidance can look like not volunteering to do that presentation at work, not signing up for that presentation option at school, not speaking out in a public space like a classroom setting, or even at the dinner table with like in-laws. And that, of course, the more you avoid something, the bigger it gets built up in your head. And then the other component of behaviors that are characteristic of anxiety is safety behaviors. So that looks like something that you learn to do in the moment that makes the situation better for you, but long term it actually hurts you more. So it doesn't get you anywhere in terms of moving through your anxiety with a certain situation. So for presentations, that could look like writing everything out word for word and sticking the paper up in front of your face so that you don't have to see anyone. And that might work in a crunch or might work once or twice, but if you do that forever, then you're gonna basically be confirming that to yourself that like, I can't do presentations, it's nerve-wracking. So what do we do to move through these behaviors? Basically expose ourselves to situations of public speaking that instill that anxiety response. So how do we expose ourselves to something safely? That's the key, right? You don't want to dive into the deep end. That's not how you learn how to swim. You don't want to shock yourself. You don't want to create more anxiety around something. You want to expose yourself safely so that you can trust yourself. And part of how we do that is by breaking things down into smaller steps. And a tool that you can use to do that for yourself, like in a tangible way, is by using what is called a fear ladder. So that is a CBT tool. And as you can see here, I have it drawn out for you. And basically the essence of this tool is breaking things down into bite-sized pieces, creating a plan, and then moving up accordingly at your own pace. So that pace is going to look different for everyone. These steps are going to look different for everyone. My recommendation would be to begin with, like, maybe break things down as much as possible. And so worst case scenario, you're moving through steps quickly, and that's actually going to help your confidence. So for public speaking, like let's say it's a presentation for school, maybe the first step is actually like writing out the presentation or brainstorming it, as an example of how you could break it down a step further or lower. So as with a lot of things that we avoid, sometimes just doing that first step can be a lot. So that can be like just diving in can be hard enough. So it does help to break the first step down as much as possible, just to give yourself momentum. So you brainstorm. Great. Maybe next you're writing out the script. Fantastic. Then next you're practicing on your own in your room. Then maybe you're practicing in front of someone you trust. And then maybe you're either giving the full-blown presentation, or maybe you're practicing or summarizing it to a figure of authority like your professor, or a role model for you that kind of gives you a little bit more nerves than maybe that person that you trust wholeheartedly. That might be like your sister or your boyfriend, or etc. So the idea is that you're gradually moving through these, taking your time, and you have the plan laid out for you. And if you're experiencing any, if you're getting stuck in any of these steps, you can try some techniques to kind of make it easier on yourself. And that can look like maybe some mindfulness techniques or imagery. So imagery could look like kind of imagining yourself brainstorming on a piece of paper, like how good that would feel to have your pen to paper and just flowing, and maybe the sun's shining, maybe the birds are chirping, just anything that can give you a sense of tranquility and relaxation. I can link some resources below for that as well. And as you move along, basically a power of this tool is also that you're creating evidence that you're making progress towards your goal. So you're giving yourself credit and building confidence. Don't forget to give yourself credit each step of the way, even if you're not happy with or how long you're getting stuck in a certain step, or maybe the presentation wasn't like 100%, or you're comparing yourself to others. Don't do that. But basically, you're seeing your progress. So So this tool, you can just write on a scrap piece of paper, or get a big piece of paper, write it on a whiteboard, whatever floats your boat. Maybe make it pretty if that makes it more fun for you. Try to have fun with it. That'll help, of course. And practice as much as you want, and then maybe apply it to different areas, like outside of public speaking. So maybe it's around like test writing. You can do the same thing if you have anxiety around tests. And maybe eventually like you find that you don't even have to do a worksheet and you're able to like generalize the skill like conceptually. So like in your head, once you get expected, someone gives you a task that maybe makes you feel a little bit anxious, then maybe in your head you'll be able to break it down into steps as well without the paper, and just reminding yourself that you got this, you are capable, etc. And just a couple last notes to keep in mind, that the more you practice this skill, the more time you spend doing it, the more benefit you get from it, the more second nature it becomes, because that's what we want eventually, right? So put in the work now, and you'll reap more benefit later. And research shows that reviewing and continuing to practice what you've learned means that you're kind of less likely to experience like anxiety in those situations, or relapse into that intense anxiety you felt at the beginning.